I use Procreate on the iPad to do pretty much all of my professional illustration work. And I'm never working on just one project at a time. So I'm always looking for ways to make the process smoother as I work between and manage multiple projects all at one time. Between trying to remember which brushes I'm using on each project, to duplicating and moving layers from one project to another, do I have some helpful tips for you. All right, so my first tip is actually my favorite tip. This is using the quick menu as a way to organize all my brushes for each individual project. If I tap on the center here, you can see that I have lots of different quick menus, and they're all filled with different brush sets, not different tools, just different brushes. So that way I don't forget them, because it's easy to forget when I'm working through lots of different projects. So this one is labeled BKAC, or Brave Kids Art Club. I have another YouTube channel. It's a kids art channel, and we're actually making a book. So if you go back to the gallery, you can see I have all the different pages and parts of this book that need to remain consistent. Same brushes, same colors, everything. But right now, we just need to figure out how to maintain these brushes. And that's the value of having a quick menu set up for brushes. So if you wanna make your own, just go to the top right of the quick menu and tap that little plus icon. And then you go scroll down, you'll see it says quick menu 7 there. So if I tap on it, tap again, we can rename it. Let's do Ocean Book. There we go. And then when I go to the different, I see I have 6 slots here and they say no action. If I just tap and hold on them, I can add, go down to select brush and I can add my own brushes. So let's just say I want to throw in this marker, one classic marker, tap and hold, go back down and just repeat that step until you've filled it with all the brushes you need for that particular project. It's crazy handy. Tip number 2 is find brush. Now that seems like an easier task than it really is for me because I have hundreds of brushes and these are just the packs. If you open them up, there's tons more inside. So my favorite folder is the recent brush folder because when I'm experimenting and playing around with different brushes, you'll be able to see the past 10 or 8 or 10 brushes that you've used. All right, so maybe I found a brush that I really like, but I can't remember which brush pack it was a part of. That's easy. All you have to do is swipe to the left and then tap on find. And then it automatically, if you go kind of scroll down here, you'll see one of these is blue right here on the left. So it says it's part of my pastels and crayons. And that way, if I want brushes that look like it or are part of the same family, I can go through and just pick one of those. Tip number 3 is pin brush. Now this one's related to the last one. If you're experimenting, trying to figure out what brushes you like and you land on one that you do like, let's just go back to this pastel spray one. Slide it to the left, and instead of doing find, you can just tap on this one right in the middle and it says pin, and it goes right to the top of your recent brush folder. That way, if I go and let's just say I want to use another brush at a different time, let's add another layer here. Now I want to draw, and then I want to use another brush in another pack, and I draw. But if you notice when I go to my recent brushes that this one is still at the top, and at the top right, you'll see a little star, meaning it's pinned. And then the other ones will just kind of fall in line underneath it. And as you use more, the ones at the bottom will keep dropping out. So this is a good way to make sure you don't lose the ones that you like. And then if you want to unpin it, just do the same thing, slide to the left, tap unpin. Tip number 4 is brush memory. Now, Procreate remembers what the last used size and opacity setting was for your brush in between projects too. So if I use this brush at this giant size on this illustration in this project, and I go to another one and start drawing on it, it's gonna be the same size. Even if I were to switch brushes, and let's just say go to this one, and then go back to that one, it's gonna remain the same size. And that's great, but when you use the same brush on another project and change the opacity settings and the brush size, it's not gonna remember that. So when you go back to this illustration, you're gonna be sitting here fussing around with the slider to make it the same brush size and opacity. Okay, so here's the tip. Tap on the quick menu, pick the brush you wanna use. Let's say I like this thickness. Over here on the slider on the left, just tap and hold on that little bar on the slider. There we go. Okay, size 37%, but there's also a little plus sign. Tap on that plus sign and look, it turns blue. And then when I move around, it's saved where that little spot was. So now if I tap on it, it doesn't matter if I go to a larger size, it doesn't look that different. Let's move it down to a smaller size. And I'm like, oh, I want it to be that exact size again. We'll just tap on that little line and it remembers it. And this allows you to save up to 4 different sizes for that brush. And then you can do that for each of your individual brushes. Same with the opacity. If I tap and hold, I can do the same thing and I can say I like that opacity setting right there on that brush. Tip number 5 is sharing layer folder. Now, A lot of times I'll have multiple projects open. If I go back to my gallery, you can see lots of parts of this, and I can't do everything in one project or one canvas because Procreate has limitations on size and how many layers you use. So oftentimes I'll have to split them up into different projects. So maybe I want to merge this project with another project, but I want to keep all the layers. That's important. I want to keep all the layers, not just a flat image. The first thing you need to do is go over to your layers panel, and then you need to select by swiping to the right, all the different layers that you want to bring. And you can't just bring them like this. You have to group them first. So once I have that group, now what I can do is I can tap and hold. So you'll see it's kind of dragging out. Don't let go. Now go back to your gallery with your other hand. I want to put it as part of this project. And I go over to my layer panel, and then I just drop it on in. And check that out. So now I have, oh, it's not even as a folder, it's just as the different layers. So then you could just group it again. And then I can have both of these projects together with all the layers. That's huge. So you don't have to just bring them in one by one. You can bring in the entire folder as separate layers. Tip number 6, make stacks. So looking at the gallery, you can see which ones are stacked. You can see a bunch. It looks like there's a pile of different images on top of each other. That's really helpful. So if you want to make stacks, it's really easy. Just tap and hold on any of your projects and hover it over another one and then let go. And there you go. It's a stack. And let's say I want to move this stack into this stack. Just kind of hover it over, it opens it up, and then I let go, and then now it's in that stack. And that's how I organize all of my files. One more thing to remember when you're making stacks is the last project that you created is going to be on the top. So if you go through and say, like, maybe it's just your sketch ended up being the front, this is a terrible representation of this project. It would be really hard to find if I was kind of just scrolling through here. So make sure that when you organize your stacks, that the project that's right here is the best representation of what that project is. Or what you can do is, for example, I do a lot with Brave Kids Art Club. I just made another project and there's no other layers on it. It's just this, and I made it as kind of like a title page. And I can actually go through all my projects and just make a title page for each of these stacks and just keep them all at a uniform size. I just chose a square here. I did it for Scout as well, another client of mine. And that just helps me visually see really quickly where those projects are. And for my final tip, tip number 7, use custom color palettes. Each of my projects requires a different color palette, so it's important that I have those set up somewhere. Let's go right here to the top right and open up our color window by tapping on this circle, and then let's go to our palettes in the bottom right. You'll notice that this one is Ocean Explorers. That's because that was the last thing I had open. But if I go down, I want to go to the Dinosaur Explorers book that I'm working on. I have these palettes saved. The little ellipses on the top right, you tap on it and you can just set it as default. And what happens is now if I go back to this disk, then you'll see that I have my Dinosaur Explorers color palette locked and loaded. So if I wanted to make a new custom palette, I would just tap on this little plus icon and go create new palette. Now look, there's other options too. You can do it from a camera, from a file, from photos, and then it just kind of pulls colors and kind of assumes the color palette and you can tweak it. Or if you just want to make your own, that's what I typically do. And then I can tap and hold maybe on this color, this pink, and then I tap on a square. And I could tap and hold over here, and I can set all my colors in this palette. And that way, whenever I'm working on a different project, I can just go to the little ellipses and then set it as the default, go back, and it's right there handy for me. Well, I hope this all helps and makes your life a whole lot easier as you're working within multiple projects in Procreate. I know for a fact it can be a pain. And if you have any tips that I haven't shared in this video, please share those in the comments below. And if you did find these helpful, you'll probably want to subscribe to my channel and then go ahead and hit that bell notification. That way you don't miss any of my future digital art tips. Like what's in this video right here. Check it out.